signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the Gotham Chronicles Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Domenic. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the Rogues Gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante known as the Dark Knight. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode, where we are going to cap off a banger of a series, The Penguin, Episode 8, A Great or Little Thing. That is episode 8 of The Penguin, and that was it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before we get into today's episode, I need to thank every single one of you listeners for tuning in. For those of you in Canada, States, and even in Europe. Shocking. Thank you so much for listening. You can catch all new episodes anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and I know a lot of you guys listen through Xbox and Chrome, which is wild to me, but hey, go for it. And also, we have a YouTube page. Follow along. There's going to be a description when you click on the episode. And yeah, please. And also, rate and review the show, as it really helps spread the word and gets the word out on Beyond the Bat Signal. And if you can, leave a 5-star. Or hey, heck, if you're like, this show's all right, by all means, listen, write a review and be honest, because it's all constructive, and I'm all for constructive criticism. So yeah, thank you very much. Now, let's get into episode 8 of The Penguin. Now, I think that I'm going to be jumping all over the place. But the one thing, I guess we'll talk about the title of the episode, A Great or Little Thing, where the meaning behind it is where each man destroys the thing that they love the most. And I thought that was so fitting for this episode, as we see a lot of people destroy what they've known or loved their whole life. And you see it with a lot of the mob bosses, the younger mob boss killing their older boss, like Link killing, I think it was Zhao, the big dog. And then obviously we will get into it, but where even Penguin killing the thing that he loves the most. And no, it's not just his mom, but also Victor. So I thought that was so fitting for this type of episode, where there was just so many twists and a lot of just ruthlessness all throughout the episode. Now, the start of the episode, I thought was wild, because here we have the backstory to good old Frances Cobb and what she was planning to do with Oz. And she ended up calling Rex over. And keep in mind that Frances right now is under the influence of Dr. Julian Rush's light therapy. And she calls Rex over to handle Oz, because she knows exactly what Oz did. That he was the one who actually killed his brothers. And she found the flashlight, and she knew that he lied. And he was with them that night, and he just let them die. And she was just like, I have literally the devil in my house. And she was willing to lose another son because of how heartbroken she was. So it kind of does like another replay of episode 7, where Frances goes to her son Oz and is saying, listen, we're going to go out and we're going to go to a jazz club, which ends up being Monroe's. So obviously Oz is all happy. He's finally got his mom all to himself. And while they're there at the jazz club, he keeps on reassuring her that he's going to give her everything she wants. Now, when Oz is saying all this, you can tell, like, he's like, everything's going to be okay, Ma. And he looks at her and then continues watching just the show. And obviously, you could tell that him losing his brothers, he was not fazed whatsoever. He was just happy that he was with his mom, right? Probably, it's almost like is it Oedipus, where, he's like just in love with his mother. And, but obviously there's something that's not right with Oz, where it just doesn't sit right. It's almost unsettling to see how he lost two family members, two brothers, and his continuing life like it never happened, unfazed. And like, while you're looking at Frances sitting there with her son, she's obviously upset, but there's like a darkening in her soul, like she's just visibly upset, and as any mother would be. And then there's just Oz sitting there and just looking on like nothing happened. But after watching it a second time, there's no doubt that Frances had a huge influence, and we kind of saw, like, it was almost like an abusive mother, but she had an influence on Oz and saying, you promised me this, you promised me that, and there was a sense of like anger towards him, and we kind of figure out why, because the whole time Frances knew that it was Oz that killed the brothers, right? She knew that Oz didn't know that she knew, though. But Oz also shaped her because of what he was promising her. He was so convincing, and that's what makes the Penguin so great, right? This is what makes Oz amazing at what he does. He was able to get out of every situation, including the death of his brothers, where his mom couldn't even act on it. So as a viewer, or as the viewers know, and it's unraveled, is that we know that Frances knows what Oz did, okay? So then one of the following scenes was, obviously, Oz, it has a huge, cloth just stuck in his mouth, and he couldn't say a single thing. And then it's like a therapy session. There's Sofia, who, it almost looks like she has like a noose wrapped around her neck, which is fitting, hangman, even though she wasn't it, but that's her nickname. And it's a therapy session as to trying to interrogate Oz to say, do you want to tell your mother what you did? I know what you did. She knows what you did, but why don't you admit it? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So they have Frances sitting down, tied up, and she is basically has her hand exposed, and then they have the cutter, which looks like it's like a cigar cutter, but probably the same cutter that cut off Alberto's thumb, and they're about to go do it to Frances. So Sofia brings Frances and Oz back to that rundown jazz club, which is just so fitting, right? Because that's pretty much where she finds out, for one, and the Penguin starts to be formed, right? It's like almost like, this is where you created this little monster. And it's all about interrogating Penguin to try to get him to admit what he did to his brothers. And he can't bring himself to it. He's using the disease that she has against her. And he's like, it's your disease that's talking, Ma. And she's like, just say it. I know what you did. And he can't do it. And then one of the big gut punches prior to the other thing that was hit the gut. But she just goes, and I don't think as for Oz, he could ever forget these words. But she's like, I hate what you've done. I will never stop hating you. I'll never forgive you for what you did. And I was just like, oh, like that's a big gut punch. And it was these eyes of hatred that you can just see penetrating right towards Oz, and the hurt that's in his face. And then to cap it off, she walks right up to him and says, I should have let Rex kill you when he had the chance. And I was like, oof. A mother saying that to her son. And, watching all this is just so uncomfortable. Watching her thumb almost get all like cut off. Like I was literally like Victoria was watching with me, my wife, and I was covering my eyes while having like, the middle cracked open, just see like, is it happening? Is it happening? And he was willing to let that thumb get cut off. Penguin was not going to admit what he did. And he was just like, I'm willing for my mother to lose a thumb in order to maintain this lie and admit what he did. Then there was this broken bottle that Francis smashes and just stabs Oz. But then if it's followed by, like, there's obviously a lot of tension, a lot of stress, and a lot of anger. And it kind of the camera goes to Sofia, and she just has this smirk like, I love what I'm seeing. Like, this is exactly what I want to do to Oz. And with Sofia, it's fascinating because she can't bring herself to kill the one person that Oz loves, which was because she's not a killer. She was never a killer. Like, prior to her going to Arkham, it was just, she was a nice human being. And then after she came out, yeah, Arkham changed her, right? And she was a product of her surroundings, unfortunately, meaning being the Falcone crime family and also being in Arkham. But her story is so tragic, and we're going to go back to that. But, what followed was, with all the stress that Frances was experiencing, she then experienced a stroke and just collapsed. And my God, the way she hit that floor, I mean, ow. Like, I don't know how she didn't do that without any padding, or if that was even real, but it had to be real. Like, that was the ultimate collapse. She just dropped. In the words of Kramer from Seinfeld, she dropped like a stone. Now, the moment that she dropped, Penguin began to freak out. And it almost seems like this sense of anger. And he somehow unties himself, breaks the chair, and gets out of this situation. He even kills that, what was it, like that crooked cop that actually brought him back to Sofia. Just pops him right in the head. And he ends up getting into a car and then takes off with his ma. And he brings her afterwards to a hospital to take care of her. And again, Oz gets out of another situation, and Sofia cannot close. Then we finally get a call from Victor. And Victor is just like, obviously he's there. He tries to recruit all the mob families to take down Sofia. And he loses it on these guys. And then Link, subtly, but he punches Vic, and just to say, like, listen, you need to know your place, and I'm going to help you out. So pay attention to your phone, basically, right? And Link becomes such an important part of the story. So Vic obviously meets Penguin at the hospital, where he's got to take care of Penguin's mom, right? Like, she's at the hospital, and he's telling the nurses, like, you need to take care of her. And then that's the last we see of her up until near the end of the episode. But then we go back to Sofia, where Sofia has gathered all the crime families and is basically making a deal. Like, I'm going to give up everything and I'm going to take off. I'm just going to leave because I can. And she's promising, like, whoever kills Penguin gets everything she has. She doesn't want any of this. The house, the money, take it all. And then we get this epic scene that follows it afterwards. So everyone leaves, and we get her dressed up in red, and she gets all of Carmine's clothes. And then you got the watch that was seen in the beginning of, I think, near episode 1, and where Alberto, I think, gave it to Carmine, and sure enough, that's thrown onto this bed, and all the alcohol is being poured all over these rooms. And Sofia lights up 3 cigarettes, and one of them, boom, and that entire room just lights up. And then it was like another one, where it was like the dining room where, Obviously, the family portrait just gets burnt to ashes, and we see Sofia slowly walking out. And we get like a back shot of the entire Falcone household, and no one's gonna get that house. That's gonna be burned to smithereens. So, I mean, good luck. You need a good contractor to rebuild that brick for brick. Hopefully you guys got the reference on that. But anyway, and she takes off. So she looks like she's got a plan. Now with Sofia, she wants to hurt Oz, and she also wants her freedom and is ready to go take off. So she hops in the car and is going to the airport. But before we get to all that, probably one of the most epic scenes in that episode, probably in the series. We got Penguin, or Oz, meeting up with the counselor, and he's basically making the deals of all deals, and he says it exactly how it's going to go down. You're going to clean up Crown Point, and you're going to capture the Hangman Killer. You're going to find, based on all those explosions, you're going to find the Maroney family and the Falcone family all down there with all the drugs down there. And your name, you're going to be looked at like from the people as a savior. And then you're going to bring in Sofia Falcone. She's going to be your ticket. And you're going to bring down the Hangman Killer again. And this is the person so basically you've taken down the Maronis, the Falcones, and the Gigantes. And you will be seen as a hero. Penguin wrote it out word for word exactly how it was going to go down. Anyway, we get to the airport, and there's all the mob bosses that have captured, I think it was the Zhao family that have captured Oz, and they bring him in and they meet them at the airport. So you have Sofia getting dropped off there by car, and then you have Link, and it looks like the other big boss. I'm going to call him Zhao, or Zhang. I'm sorry if I'm messing up this name, but and they have guns all pointed towards Penguin, and Sofia is about to take off, and she watches how this all plays out, and then all of a sudden, it was like a double cross. So Link takes out the big boss, Zhang or Zhao, and it just seems like it's a gun war. Everyone's been taken out with the exception of Oz and Sofia. So it's a double cross. And this was all orchestrated pretty much through Vic. Vic was the one who helped out. Now, then we get like a nice little full circle where it's so fitting. We have Oz as the driver, and then we have Sofia in the back seat where she, by the way, so while Oz is driving, she's trying to get out of the back seat and try to jump out, but that's not going to happen. And she's fully anticipating her death. Now, if you listen to the Batman on Film podcast, it was Bill who was talking with Ryan, and Bill asked the question, what's worse than death for Sofia? And she said, and the response was Arkham. Like, that would be worse. And then they predicted this is how it would go down. And they were bang on. So, Oz brings Sofia back to Elliott Bridge. Again, we're hearing the name Elliott. I gotta believe that Hush is coming for the Batman Part 2, but who knows. And according to Lauren LaFranc, the Elliott Bridge is a great, I guess, divider between the rich and the poor. So Oz has that gun pointed right at her, and he's asked her a couple times to turn around, because in my head I thought he was gonna pop her right there and just take her out. And he kept on asking Sofia to turn around, and we slowly get like just a last look of Sofia, and we're like, okay, here's her death scene. She's gonna get shot, and then lights flash on her, and all the cops surround her. And then we got, what was it, Mackenzie Bach? You son of a bitch. Anyway, they all arrest Sofia and take her out. And it was exactly how Oz said it would go down, and how he got the councilman to basically, it was him that got to take her down. And everything that Oz said is what the councilman did. And sure enough, this guy is going to look like an angel, especially to the people in Crown Point. So Sofia's biggest nightmare came true when she went back to Arkham. And according to Lauren LaFranc, she always said that she's always planned that Sofia would be going back to Arkham. And for Sofia, this is definitely a fate that is worse than death. And they even bring up a scene near the end, or at the end, where Sofia is just back in Arkham looking depressed to high hell. And then sure enough, Julian Rush, oh God, that guy bothers me so much. I don't know what it is. But anyway, he's back and he's got some mail, some poems, and then there's even love letters. And then we got a beautiful envelope in black. So this guy obviously has to open them and screen them, or someone does. And anyway, it's in black, and it is from a Selena Kyle, which I'm sure we all know the name. And sure enough, it's her half-sister. And there's a slight smile from Sofia, which I love how they just they don't spill the tea. They just kind of leave it off as to like making it, you create whatever you want in your own mind. Now we get to basically the ending. And then this is where we see, honestly, there was something about Oz that I did like. And then sure enough, he's killing his brothers. Him coming out and killing his brothers. And you're like, okay, he's not a good human being. And then near the end, obviously you see Vic witness what Oz had to go through at his most vulnerable times. And Vic was so important to what Penguin had to achieve. Like, without Vic, Penguin couldn't achieve any of this. And, he saw Penguin as most vulnerable. And, with Oz being told that his mom is basically a vegetable, and she suffered a serious stroke, and that is it. She's basically a vegetable. And he was heartbroken. He was crying. And Vic consoled him. And then we get, Oz and Vic sitting by what looked like the river, talking. And maybe Vic said too much, but Vic was like to Oz, "You're family to me." And for Oz to get to the top, he cannot have any vulnerabilities whatsoever, and cannot have anybody close to him whatsoever. And Oz just grabs Vic with his bare hands and strangles him. And it was so uncomfortable, so unsettling to watch him strangle Vic to death. And you're just like, what the F? Why? I was in disbelief. My jaw dropped to the ground. Being like, wow. And I couldn't stop saying wow to my wife. Seeing that happen, it was excruciating to watch and uncomfortable to watch. It just goes to show that Oz is going to do whatever it takes to achieve his ultimate goal. And, he's just ruthless. And it just goes to show, like Oz said, it wasn't for nothing, right? And he got him to point A, point B, all the way to the end. And that was it. That was all Vic's job was, and he killed him, right? It was really excruciating to watch. Oz then, after he kills Vic, he grabs Vic's wallet, takes it out, takes the cash, whatever was in there, gets the ID, and throws the ID into the water for any identification. And then, sure enough, so ruthless. If you look at the X/Twitter, I think it was at the Batman, one of those two official tags. But anyway, and it's just missing person, and has Vic as the face, and just gut punch when seeing that. But yeah, and it just goes to show that Penguin is just, it's almost like a tragic hero. He's sweet and he's got a kind side, but really what it is just he's a monster, and that's where that monster just came out. He was willing to kill someone that's so close to him with his bare hands. And that's followed up by, then we see Penguin obviously reach the top. It almost seems like there was a little bit of a time jump, but the show doesn't tell us how much. And he's getting out of a beautiful Phantom Rolls Royce, and obviously purple. And he goes into this huge building where there's a penthouse. Now, not only do we see that, but we see Oz in a tux. And there's a top hat. No monocle, but there's a top hat. And this is the Oz that it almost seems like he's fully formed Penguin. It is not the Oz that we started with in the Batman or at the beginning of this series. He is definitely progressed as top dog. And, he's dressed to the nines. He goes up. He goes right to the penthouse and visits its mom and gives her everything she promised. Now, is it nicely decorated? Definitely not. Doesn't even look finished. And then, his mom being in the state that she's in, there are tears that come down her face. And it's difficult to say, but if she was at that point, she's cognitive to what is going on. This is not what she wanted. She would have rather the pug been pulled out. But for Oz, he was so upset when he found out that she was, not coherent, not able to speak or mention. All he wanted her to say to her, or say to him, was, tell me you're proud of me, tell me you love me. And he didn't get any of that satisfaction. So then we get, which I thought was kind of fitting, Eve Carlo, which I'm not sure if that's a play for Basil Carlo, because Eve has got multiple different looks, multiple different wigs, and this time she's playing a different look, and this time it's as Oz's mom. So Oz goes down the stairs with Eve dressed as his mom, waiting for her. And this is uncomfortable and very cringe, but this is the sickness in Oz, right? And they start dancing in the very dress that Oz put on his mother when they were dancing to one of those jazz songs. And then the wig resembles so much like Francis Cobb. Yeah, there's no doubt that this is a transactional relationship between him and Eve. And the transaction, where you pay for some love. And this time it was, I'll pay you, and in transaction, he's going to receive his mom or someone dressed as his mom. And she's going to tell him, I'm proud of you. She's going to tell him, because she did, I love you. And I'm not talking about his actual mother, someone dressed as his mother. These words that he always wanted to hear. Again, that just, I don't know, man. I just shiver in disgust. And reflecting and saying this all out loud is tragic, right? Because he lost a lot of people on the way. He even lost his mother. And it's just tragic because everything he wants was delusional. It's tragic that his mom could never say, I'm proud of you. It's tragic that he was told he was the devil, right? It's tragic that the way he is, he let his brothers die. It's tragic that he had to pay someone to dress up as his mother to tell him, I'm proud of you, in that transactional relationship. And there's a lot more that he lost than maybe he gained, but he thinks because he's at the top that maybe this is his happiness. But is it, right? Because he's lost everything now. And anyone that's close to him, he's going to immediately kill. Who knows? But I don't know, man. It's a very tragic story. You almost feel bad for Penguin because of, he's sick. He is. And it was at such a young age. And he just didn't feel any remorse for it. And now you're looking at his mom, something that she did not want. Asked him, begged him, do not let me be at this state. And he kept her just so he can keep her around because he can't let go of her. And it's just the love that he has for her, yes, but, maybe it's the wrong type of love. Now, let's talk about that. There's two things I want to talk about. Let's talk about this. A lot of complaints about Batman not showing up in this series. There were mentions, and every now, I think it was the first and last episode of a bat flying around, whatever. And I don't want to be too long on this, but I will say that was Batman being in the series necessary? And I don't think it was. I think because this is from the perspective of the Penguin. The series is called The Penguin, just like the Batman was called The Batman. We had it from the perspective of the Batman. We're not going to know everything that Oz was doing. We're not going to know everything that Carmine Falcone or Selina was doing, right? Same thing with Penguin. When Penguin, people online were just making memes, making jokes about there's that street that completely collapsed and just got bombed. And it's like, oh, where's Batman? Well, keep in mind, Penguin was whacked and immediately brought away. And we're still following along in the footsteps of what is going on with the Penguin. We don't know that the Batman didn't show up to these spots. We have no idea, right? And honestly, I think it would have taken away if we included either Batman or Bruce Wayne into this. Gordon, maybe we can include him, but I don't know. I just thought that we got the chief of police. That was more than enough. And to have Batman in it, I just thought it would have just taken away from the show. It was not necessary. I feel like that would have been shoehorned in, and it just didn't belong, right? The ending, however, I absolutely thought was beautiful and perfectly fit, which was them lighting up the bat signal. Now, right before that bat signal hit the sky, it wasn't until Eve said, "Gotham's yours, sweetheart. Nothing standing in your way now." And then, flash. All you see, bat signal hits the sky, and the scene ends. Show's done. Chef's kiss. I honestly believe it was perfectly done, and that's exactly what was needed. Not too much, not too little. Is just right. And we cap off with Penguin being the Penguin, fully formed, it seems like. And we got Batman starting his next case. And that is it for that episode. Which, listen, you give me a letter grade, I'm giving that an A+, a 9.5 out of 10. I really don't think that there was any issues with this episode. It was so well done. I still think about the first episode because 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton, that song is still replaying in my head. So catchy. But every single episode in this series was so well done. And I'm so curious to what you guys think about this series, about this show. I'd love to see a season 2. I'm not sure, but they did announce that, well, not them, but there are rumors that there will be another show just like The Penguin, whether it's about The Penguin or someone else. Rumor of Joker being mentioned, but it would be in between the Batman Part 2 and Batman Part 3. And I am all for it. I love the world Matt Reeves has built. There is nothing like this, and Batman should definitely not be part of DCU. And I'm talking about Robert Pattinson's Batman. But anyway, this Penguin series was so well done. Talk about home runs with every single one of these individuals. Lauren LaFranc, who ran this, the people who wrote the show, directed, the actors, actresses, all excellent. Even the one who played Victor, is it Aguiar? I don't know. But anyway, he played so well in his role. And talk about even breakout roles for Kristen Milioti. Does she not deserve an Emmy? Does Colin Farrell not deserve an Emmy? Literally edge of your seat episodes, just so well done. But yeah, definitely want to hear your thoughts on the episode. So feel free to shoot me a comment, whether it's on X/Twitter at BeyondBatSignal, or you can email me beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com. Now, before I go, I wanted to mention something, and so proud. I was so excited to be on this gentleman's show. Ryan Lauer has a show, in case you haven't heard it, but I'm sure you have, because I mentioned it multiple times, and I'm sure he's kind of a big deal. You mention his name, you get free hot dogs. So beyond, the Batman Book Club. Let me tell you, this guy's got a show, and you can listen to every single episode and pick up wherever you'd like, depending on the book. listen, I've listened to every single episode of his. But anyway, I was on, and I think he posted on Monday. But we talked Heart of Hush. So if you want, follow along Ryan Lauer's The Batman Book Club. And he's got Twitter/X. It's called @TheBatmanBC. But he definitely has a podcast called The Batman Book Club, which highly recommend that you tune in. Let me know what you think. I had a lot of fun being on his show. He is so easy to talk to, really kind and generous with his time, and just, I don't know. The guy has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Batman. He is, like, I know he says sometimes that he's a student of Batman, but man, this guy can recall information about so many Batman books like the back of his hand. And definitely had a great time being on his show. So, Ryan, if you're listening, buddy, thank you very much for having me on. Now, as for me, please feel free to follow along on X/Twitter @BeyondBatSignal. Shoot me an email at beyondthebatsignal@gmail.com, and rate and review the show. Please leave 5 stars, leave a comment, and I will read your review on the next podcast. Coming up next, I am going to be definitely posting a review on, I know this is taking a while, but The Last Halloween issue 2. Newsflash, I liked it a lot. I can't wait to discuss it. And yeah, that is it for me. And this is Beyond the Bat Signal, signing off.